Blog Talk Radio. Blog Talk Radio.
Franchise interviews from Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia. You're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews. Welcome to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews has been giving an up-close, behind-the-scenes look at franchising and entrepreneurship. Listen to interviews with franchisers, franchisees, franchise authors, franchise experts, and attorneys. And now, welcome your host, Marty McDermott, and Franchise Interviews.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to a very special edition of Franchise Interviews, where for over 8 years, we've been asking the entrepreneurs one-on-one. I'm your host, Marty McDermott. I'm the president of Franchise Interviews, and we have a great show today. We're meeting with the Executive Vice President International for BrightStar Care, Anthony Padulo. And BrightStar Care is a home care, senior care franchise opportunity that's transforming the lives of their franchise owners, clients, and their loved ones. I'm going to talk to Anthony about that in just a moment on Franchise Interviews, so stick around because we have a great show.
Are you one of those special people who are willing to go after your dreams and goals? Are you ready to fulfill that dream of owning your own business with the security of a proven brand? The opportunity to take control of your future and own a Rita's Italian Ice franchise is within your reach.
Rita's is seeking success-oriented individuals who are ready to make a change in their life, and Rita's offers unparalleled training and support to assure your success. And did you know the frozen treat industry is a recession-proof industry, and there are Rita's in 23 states currently with 540 stores open. Rita's Italian Ice has been around for 25 years and is listed as a top-performing franchise by the Wall Street Journal.
Now here's the really good part. Rita's Italian Ice is a unique and amazing taste treat. It's smoother than a snow cone, and it combines ice with real fresh fruit. The real fruit adds dramatically to the taste, and it comes in over 40 flavors. The ice and fruit are mixed on site and made fresh daily, and it is delicious.
You'll want to know more about this exciting and successful franchise opportunity. Go to www.ownaritas.com and get all your questions answered. That's www.ownaritas.com to take control of your dreams and future today. You don't want to wait any longer to be a part of this adventure. www.ownaritas.com.
Franchise interviews from Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia. You're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to a very special edition of Franchise Interviews, where for over 8 years, we've been asking the entrepreneurs one-on-one. I'm your host, Marty McDermott, and I'm the president of Franchise Interviews, and as we were saying earlier, we have a great show today. We're meeting with the Executive Vice President International for BrightStar Care, Anthony Padulo. And BrightStar Care is a home care, senior care franchise opportunity that's transforming the lives of their franchise owners, clients, and loved ones. Hey, Anthony, how you doing? Welcome to the show.
Hi, Marty. How are you? Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Anthony. I had to start off the show saying that, my wife, her favorite show is Undercover Boss, and she saw Shelley on the show, and we thought she was fantastic. I thought she did a great job. What was it like seeing her on the show for you?
Oh, it really is a thrill to see her. I mean, what you saw on TV is exactly her personality in real life. She is so passionate about what she does. It's such a thrill and a pleasure working with her.
That's fantastic. For the folks who don't already know, Anthony, can you describe a brief history of BrightStar Care?
Sure. So BrightStar Care is an in-home care provider. We are a premium provider. We started our business in 2002. What happened at the time, Shelley and JD, her husband, had an ailing grandmother, JD's grandmother, and they were looking for quality in-home care for the grandmother, and there was no service available. Yeah. Unfortunately, after the grandmother passed away, they recognized that there was a need for it, so they started the business in 2002, initially with corporate agencies, right. And we started franchising the concept in 2005. So since 2005, we've opened just over 280 agencies in 36 states throughout the U.S.
That's amazing. The industry is fantastic. It seems like it just keeps getting bigger and bigger, Anthony. I mean, how big is the demand for the service that BrightStar Care provides?
Well, the opportunity is huge. When you look at the business, even though we provide a full continuum of service, we provide services from infant care right through senior. The reality is that the bulk of the business is senior care. Right. And as everybody knows, population is aging not only in the U.S. but around the world to the point that by 2050, our population of age 60 and over in the U.S. and around the world will more than double. So it's a growing need. Adults, as we get older, not only unlike our predecessors who were more inclined to use nursing homes or assisted livings, we really live longer, hopefully live better, want to stay home as long as we can. So whether we're talking about post-operation patients or just people that need companion or skilled or medical care, they want to do it in their home. So that business is a growing business. We're seeing the effects. I mean, our last 10 years of business, we have been growing exponentially every year, and we only see that trend growing further as we move forward.
It was amazing. I was in New Jersey yesterday. I'm actually in Pennsylvania, where our studio is, Anthony. But we actually passed a BrightStar, and it was around Piscataway, New Jersey. And I said, "Oh God!" I said, "That's a great sign." It's I said, I'm interviewing those guys tomorrow. Which is really great. Something interesting happened in your business when I was watching Undercover Boss. Shelley did mention the decision to expand internationally. Maybe we could talk a little bit about that, Anthony. I thought that was interesting.
Sure. So we made the decision to move internationally early in 2014. And that's why I joined the group in February last year. I was fortunate enough to have known Shelley through the IFA, the International Franchise Association. And when Shelley and Tom Gilday, who was our president, felt that the company now had the infrastructure in place and was ready to start growing internationally, I was fortunate enough that both of them thought of me as the right person to take the initiative. So we have started doing our pipeline and our development strategy last year, and I'm now working with candidates in several countries around the world. Right. So it's an exciting opportunity because all of the services we provide here in the U.S., those services can be mirrored, and there's a need for them in most developed countries throughout the world.
Sure, why not? If you think about it, it does make sense, Anthony. And it was interesting, as I was, reviewing, your biography. It made sense to hire someone like yourself. I've seen that, over the years, you've worked with, just Dunkin Brands, was it BP Oil, Aamco? All those, major franchises and helping them expand internationally as well. So this must be interesting for you because it's a different industry.
It is. It's exciting because obviously I had no previous experience in healthcare. Right. My area of expertise and experience for the last 34 years has been in franchise development and in international development. But what I've learned over the years is that the basic principles of development and common sense and logic work regardless of the concept. One, you get familiar with your concept, but the principles behind that, underlying that, to develop, whether it's domestic or international, are exactly the same in every industry.
Yeah, I think that's well said. Because you've been doing this so long, Anthony, what are some of the common mistakes that other brands may run into when trying to expand internationally?
I think from my experience, and I've been fortunate enough to work with major companies like Dunkin Donuts, Baskin Robbins, BP Oil, who have had I don't want to say unlimited resources, but certainly huge resources.
Sure,
but despite that, I think the first mistake that most companies do when they look at international growth is severely underestimate the resources and time required to grow internationally. Now, that's more of an internal issue, but you have to allocate the resources corporately to make sure that you're successful internationally. From a more pragmatic approach, I think one of the things you have to also understand is you have to weigh a careful balance between your product, the integrity of your concept, and how do you apply that concept internationally in different countries. So on the one hand, you don't want to compromise what you stand for. You have to clearly understand what are those critical elements of the business that cannot be changed. And from there, take it to the next step and then understand and say, okay, these are the 4 or 5 key areas that we can change, but how are we going to be flexible enough or nimble enough to make sure that the culture in that country is accepting of it and we can translate? So it's a delicate balance, Marty, between one, not compromising your concept, being true to what you're known for and what you've been successful, but at the same time understanding that every culture, every country has slightly different or very different in some cases cultures, traditions, and how do you make those work in those countries?
That's well said. What about the countries that do not speak English, Anthony? I mean, what's that like? And I assume that the BrightStar will be heading towards a lot of those non-English speaking countries as well.
Yes, absolutely. So what happens, the way that we look at our growth internationally, Marty, is different from the U.S. In the U.S., all of our development activity is what one would call direct franchising. We franchise individual franchise agreements. We don't sell multi-unit agreements or master agreements. Our strategy internationally is very different because obviously we, as most companies, do not have the infrastructure or the resources to be able to have departments or employees in every market. So we typically will be working with and are looking for well-qualified and experienced either master franchisees or area developers. And the only difference between the two is that a master franchisee would typically develop a few units themselves first and then start sub-franchising on our behalf, whereas the area developer, similar situation, but they would corporately develop and operate each unit themselves so that our relationship would be with one person as opposed to 280 people like we have here in the U.S.
That's fantastic. So what do you think BrightStar Care has what it takes, Anthony, to be successful overseas? I mean, as you were mentioning, it's a big decision, for a company to move forward with this type of venture.
Yeah. So I think where we differentiate ourselves from, first thing, actually, stepping back is whether or not there's a need for in-home care, and that because of the aging population, we absolutely believe that there is. But from there, why BrightStar as opposed to anybody else? And for us, our clear points of differentiation probably come in 3 main areas. One is we offer a full a spectrum of service from companion care through personal care right through medical care, skilled care, which is nursing care, which in the U.S. no other national provider offers all 3 levels of service. Most in-home care in the U.S. and abroad as well tend to focus on the companion care, but we offer all 3 levels. And by doing that, we are the only ones that have a registered nurse in every agency that oversees the plan of care for all of our clients. Because we have the skilled care and the nursing oversight, we are the only in-home care service that has Joint Commission accreditation. Now, to most of us, including myself, who never had a healthcare background, that means absolutely nothing to us. But if you're in the medical field, the Joint Commission accreditation is considered to be the highest standard of quality for healthcare organizations. Wow. All hospitals get that. It's sort of like the Good Housekeeping seal of approval.
Right.
And we have that accreditation not only at the corporate level, but it's mandated as part of our franchise agreement that every one of our franchisees be accredited within their first year by the Joint Commission. And we're lucky enough that the Joint Commission does have an international arm, so that as we explore new countries internationally, we will also be focusing on countries that have that international arm of the Joint Commission. On the international side, it's called the Joint Commission International. And then the third part of our point of differentiation, if you want, is that we also, because of the medical and because of the nursing oversight, we offer what we call a full continuum of care, which means that we can provide any kind of service or care ranging from infant care, newborn care, right through to senior care, and at different levels, whether it's companion or more skilled, skilled in terms of nursing care.
That really opens up the market, doesn't it, Anthony? I mean, it makes the market so huge. I mean, when you think
really
about
does.
it.
It really does, and it's a great advantage for our franchisees, too. Because we offer this full continuum, it allows our franchisees to really design their agencies by focusing on those areas that they would prefer. So because we offer all levels, our franchisees don't necessarily have to have all areas of service, but they can, knowing that we have the processes in place. So, for example, we have some agencies that enjoy the infant care, so they tend to focus their business more on the infant care. We have franchisees that focus more on the senior care. We have franchisees that prefer to focus on the companion care only. So it gives them that flexibility within the parameters of the business model to really pick, knowing that that we have those processes already set up for them, and they're all approved and they're all recognized by the Joint Commission.
That's fantastic. So I know you're still looking for franchisees domestically. What types of characteristics do you look for in your franchisees, both domestically and internationally, Anthony?
Sure. So they are different. So on the domestic side, because we're looking for individual franchisees, we're really looking for people that have a strong business acumen, that understand franchising and are comfortable in a franchise environment. They understand the benefits of buying into a franchise organization rather than on their own. So we look for people that we know are process oriented, that appreciate the processes we have in place, the fact that we have our in-house proprietary software program, people that appreciate the need for IT within the business, people that have leadership qualities, and I think first and foremost, people that have really a passion for quality service. Because we are a premier brand and because we're a premium brand, for us it's all about our customers being first. We develop our plan of care based on our customers' needs, not the other way around. So we need franchisees that understand that concept and are comfortable in that same environment. So the key is business acumen, passion, understanding the value of a franchise system, and being able to work within that. On the international side, very different, because we're looking for larger franchisees. We're looking primarily for either corporations or existing franchisees, master franchisees of other non-competing brands that are looking to diversify. Because it's important that, especially if they're going to get into sub-franchising, that they understand the responsibilities and the needs of sub-franchisees. And the interesting thing in both departments, whether it's international or domestic, is that you don't need the healthcare background. Although it's good to have a healthcare background, it's by no means mandatory, because our training and support processes are so robust that we provide a high level of training and processes in the clinical care that you really don't need the healthcare background.
Which is the great thing about franchising too, Anthony, isn't it? Is that, you don't need to have that, experience. Sometimes there's a common misperception, in doing the show for 8 years is that, a lot of people or prospective franchisees think that they have to have that industry experience or work in that business before they go into it, and that doesn't happen here, does it?
Exactly. And that's been my experience in my 34 years, whether it was at Dunkin' Donuts or Aamco, especially Dunkin' Donuts. I remember the days where, very often our most difficult franchisees were former bakers because they had their own way of making pastries, and Dunkin' has their way, whether right or wrong, but they have their way of making a donut, and you want to train that person from day one,
That's fantastic. So what's the training like then for new franchisees then, Anthony?
So we have a couple of stages. We do a pre-opening training first. So every new franchisee will come to our offices. We're based in Gurnee, which is a suburb of Chicago. So they will come in for a 1-week training program, which is designed specifically for franchisees. And then that's followed up by 3 1-week sessions as well, based on the 3 disciplines. We have 3 main disciplines in each agency. We have the registered nurse, which is the director of nursing. We have a business manager and a sales manager. So typically, the franchisee will take on the role of either business manager or sales manager based on where their competencies and where they're more comfortable with. So they will come back for that 1 week of training, and then they will hire a director of nursing and whatever other discipline. So each of those 3 people will have a 1-week session. So that's a total of 4 weeks training pre-opening. And then as the office is ready to open, we have a dedicated BrightStar, we call, team that handles specifically new franchisees. And they work with you through the process, are there on a more regular basis than they would, let's say, with a mature franchisee. Mm-hmm. And they slowly transition you when you're ready to a mature franchise sales support. So you basically start with the pre-opening staff. That could be, anywhere from 6 to 18 months working with them. And then once you reach maturity as a franchisee, then you would transfer to our, if I can call it our regular field support people. And we have ongoing online training for all the disciplines as well. So the caregivers, we offer training online for them. For the nurses, there are programs as well that help with their accreditation in nursing, or there's CNAs, which are other certified nursing assistants. So, the plan, the training that we offer for those categories are all recognized as well by the medical board. So they, count and very often count as credits towards their own accreditations.
That's fantastic. So, not to make you feel old on this next question, but you've been doing this such a long time now. What I've been dying to ask is, what advice would you give to our listeners, Anthony? I mean, we call them aspiring entrepreneurs, and so many of them, they just don't even know where to begin. So what advice would you give them in their quest to buy a franchise?
So I would say the first thing you have to, in my experience, first thing you have to reconcile is how much capital do I have to invest? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And look at it more in terms of franchisors based on investment level rather than specifically a brand initially. So I think what you first have to do is say, okay, I have, let's say, $300,000 to invest. What franchises are available in that price range? Because there's no point looking at a $600,000 or $700,000 investment if you don't meet the criteria. You're just, wasting your time and energy, and you get demotivated. So you do that first. Then you'll look at the different segments, and often you'll start to be attracted to a certain segment. Mm-hmm. When you're talking to a franchisor, what you need to understand as an aspiring franchisee is, one, you want to understand the franchisor's history. How long have they been in business? What kind of reputation do they have? Definitely talk to existing franchisees, because franchisee validation is so important. Yeah. We can tell you I don't want to say whatever we want, but obviously we represent the franchisor, and even though we respect the guidelines of the FDD and the FTC, but the reality is you need to further validate with franchisees.
True.
Then look at the growth of the company, not only from a units perspective and not only from a revenue perspective, but look at same-store growth as well, because the health of any franchise system is not only their system-wide sales, but as importantly, it's their existing units, because obviously anybody can grow a lot of units and that grows your system-wide sales. But if your individual units are not doing well, or if they're not growing, I mean, our units have been averaging the last 3 years anywhere between 13 to 20% sales growth per year, same stores. So that's very important. And then the last part is also understand as well as you can what is the vision for the company moving forward. And by that I mean, what are their growth plans? Are they keeping up with changes? Are they an innovator? Are they a leader rather than a follower? Are they just looking to stop growth now? Have they reached a mature level where they're saying, well, there's not much room, which isn't necessarily bad, but at least you have to understand where you're going with the company. So I think if you follow those steps and do your due diligence, and make sure also, the last thing I would say, if anything, is make sure that your cultural, your core values are consistent with the company's core values, and vice versa. I mean, we have a very regimented process in awarding our franchises, and one of the things that is very, very important to us, despite in spite of everything else, financial, business acumen, all of that, but it's very important that we are a fit with our new franchisees, and our franchisees are a fit with us, and that we share those same core values.
Yeah, that's so important, isn't it, Anthony? That it kind of fits like a glove. It's a match on both ends, isn't it?
Exactly.
That's fantastic. So, what are the BrightStar Care's plans for the future, then, Anthony? I know that there's, of course, the international growth, but anything else?
Well, we have just launched this year our first BrightStar Senior Living facility.
Oh, wow.
So part of our vision is obviously to continue growing our BrightStar Care, and we're growing this year. We'll be growing at 30 units this year, 40 next year, and 50 in 2017. But in addition to that, we're also looking at complementary concepts that work with the system. So we opened last year a senior living community in Madison, Wisconsin. It's a premium, and it fits in with our philosophy. It's a premium facility. It has 2 floors, 36 beds. The first floor is dedicated to assisted living. The second floor is dementia patients. And we opened it ourselves. We made the investment. We operated it for a full year until we reached our targets, and we just franchised it to one of our existing successful BrightStar franchisees in Wisconsin, who is taken over as of the end of February. So our plan is to start growing that new concept as well. Our plan is to have 4 new agreements signed by this year, 6 next year, and 10 in 2017. So over the next 3 years, we're looking at a combination of international growth on the BrightStar Care side, domestic growth of 120 agencies on the BrightStar Care domestically, and 20 new franchise agreements on the BrightStar Senior Living. So it's a very, very exciting time for us.
Wow, there is. There's a lot going on at BrightStar, isn't there?
All good stuff.
That's great. What's the best way for our listeners to get more information on BrightStar, Anthony? Any websites they should go to?
Yeah, absolutely. So you could go to franchise.brightstarcare.com.
Okay.
Or call at 877-689-6898. Either way, whatever's easier for you.
That's fantastic. I want to thank you again so much for coming on the show, Anthony. You've been a wonderful guest, and I'd like to invite you back next year as you continue to grow. It's going to be interesting to see the international expansion for BrightStar.
Oh, I'd be excited. Love to do that. Thank you so much, Marty, for your time.
My
I appreciate
pleasure,
it.
Anthony. Thanks so much, and we'll be right back with more franchise interviews.
Franchise interviews. From Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia, you're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews. Franchisers, are you looking to reach aspiring entrepreneurs looking to buy a franchise? Are you looking to reach a highly educated audience on franchising? For over 8 years, Franchise Interviews has been giving an up-close, behind-the-scenes look at franchising and entrepreneurship through our website, franchiseinterviews.com, where you can hear and read interviews as well as get tips from some of the most successful sources in franchising. Our weekly franchise radio show where each week you get to hear a new interview with franchisers, franchisees, franchise authors, franchise experts and attorneys, and our podcast, Great Quotes in Franchising. For more information, go to franchiseinterviews.com or call us at 610-905-2919. That's 610-905-2919.
Hi everyone, this is Marty McDermott from Franchise Interviews, and welcome to another edition of Great Quotes in Franchising, where each podcast you get to hear a great quote in franchising. You know, we've been hosting Franchise Interviews many years now, and over that time we've had some incredible quotes on the show. One of the popular quotes that makes it into our Great Quotes in Franchising podcast comes from the question, what advice would you give to an aspiring entrepreneur looking to buy a franchise? And we asked that question to Wanda Sieber of Unishippers of Green Bay, and I thought Wanda's answer was really just as good as anything we've ever heard on the show. So we're going to play that clip for you right now, so enjoy.
Interesting. The question I've been dying to ask you, from all of your experience, because you've been doing this a long time now, and the majority of our listeners, Wanda, we call them aspiring franchipreneurs. They know that they want to go into their own business, and it seems like they're most interested in franchising. What would you say to them from all your years of experience as a franchisee?
Well, I love being an entrepreneur, but I really love being a franchisepreneur because it takes a lot of the risk and nighttime drama out of a person's life. I don't think anybody wants to start a business and lay awake feeling like they need to throw up every night.
Sure.
And you can do that if, you can do that anytime you want, but a lot of that goes away when you're part of a franchise system. We get a lot of calls from potential franchisees, and they ask me, what do you like about Unishippers in particular? And I'll share that, but I think they're good things to look for as you're looking at any franchise system. And hopefully, when you're looking at a franchise system, you're able to call existing franchisees and do due diligence.
Right.
The first is we're really pleased with the ethical leadership of our leadership team. Every one of them has come from the franchise body. They owned franchises and still own franchises. But they were hired by the corporate office as we transitioned from the original founding ownership to this leadership team. So I'm very impressed with their ethics. I've been very impressed with how they retool. As I mentioned, when we first started, we were only reselling overnight letters and packages for Airborne Express. That was really pre-fax machines, pre-email attachments. So if that was all we were doing, you certainly would not be talking to me right now.
Wow.
So we've retooled to add freight, international shipping, rail, ocean. So retooling for market changes is big. I also love that there's a lot of franchisee input, grassroots, bottom-up input to the franchisor through their advisory councils. There's a marketing advisory council, a sales advisory council, a technical advisory council, and then I sit on the president's advisory council. I like to say that I'm the token woman there. But that kind of feedback to the franchisor, that's the first important part of the equation. But the second important part is they actually listen to it, and we have found that franchisees are able to shape the policies implemented by the franchisor. If we come up with a great idea, they'll vet it, and if it's a great idea, it becomes the franchise policy. So those are all good things to look for as you're looking at a particular franchise system.
I think it's very powerful advice. We've been doing this show now 7 years, and I think that's one of the best responses we've got, is particularly, with the leadership. I'm very impressed how they were franchisees, because I think that's very important, that they can empathize. I think sometimes it's difficult for someone to empathize what it's truly like to be a franchisee, if you've never done it before. And something you mentioned, too, on it is the whole, retooling, and I think that's important, too. It's a great word to use, the nighttime drama. It probably happens a lot with entrepreneurs, right? You're thinking, okay, what do I have to do next, and you're thinking about all these different ideas, and you don't know what's going to work and what's not going to work, and I'm sure Unishippers does a lot of research, market research as far as, what's going on out there, what trends are taking place in the industry. And then, again, the franchisee input is so important because I don't think all, again, studying franchising for as long as I have now, not all of them really act upon, the input from the franchisees. They'll listen to it, but they don't really do anything with it, So I think that's so important what you just said, I think that's very powerful. So, I can understand, why you enjoy the Unishippers system so much. What's